Hello children, myself Hema Marwah is going to introduce you the chapter Physical and Chemical Changes. So let us start the chapter Physical and Chemical Changes. Children, now we will learn what is a change. Means what do you mean by a change? Change can be defined as a transition of state or condition of a thing to another. I repeat, change can be defined as a transition of state or condition of a thing to another. Now, what important points you have to keep in your mind about changes? Changes are an integral part of nature. Second, changes takes place every moment around us. In the nature, changes takes place every moment around us. Some examples I have quoted. What are they? They are the digestion of food, ripening of fruit, growth of plant. Children, now in this slide, we will learn the types of changes covered in our chapter. Changes are classified into various types depending on the various factors. Reversible and irreversible changes. Now, what are they? A change is said to be reversible when the opposite change can be brought about by reversing the condition. I repeat, a change is said to be reversible when the opposite change can be brought about by reversing the conditions. Now, what is non-reversible or irreversible change? A change is said to be irreversible when the opposite change cannot be brought about by reversing the condition. I repeat, a change is said to be irreversible when the opposite change cannot be brought about by reversing the condition. Now, what are the examples? Say, for example, if you take out the ice cubes from the fridge and you keep it outside, you will see the ice cubes, they change into the water. So again, if you just freeze the water into the ice by keeping it back into the refrigerator, you will get the ice. So this is the example of reversible change. And if we talk about the irreversible change, curdling of milk. If you just put a little amount of the curd in the lukewarm milk, you will see after 4 or 6 hours, the whole milk will be changed into the curd. You cannot bring back curd back into the milk. So this is the example of irreversible change. Now we will continue with the types of changes covered in the chapter. Some changes can be classified into two types. What are they? Desirable and undesirable changes. What are desirable changes? Such changes which are useful to us, and therefore desired are called desirable changes. So what are the desirable changes we see around us? They are the ripening of fruit, growth of a child, etc. But some changes which are harmful to us, and therefore undesirable. They are called undesirable change. Now, what are the examples? Volcanic eruption, say for example, earthquakes, spoiling of food, etc. Now we will learn what is a physical and chemical change, or what are physical and chemical changes. A change in which no new substances are formed and which can be reversed by reversing the condition is called a physical change. I repeat the definition. A change in which no new substances are formed and which can be reversed by reversing the conditions is called a physical change. For example, changes in state of matter. For example, change of ice into water and vice versa. That are the example of physical change. Now we will know what is a chemical change. A change in which new substances are formed and which cannot be reversed by reversing the conditions is called a chemical change. A change in which new substances are formed and which cannot be reversed by reversing the conditions is called a chemical change. What are the examples? Curdling of milk includes formation of curd, which is a new substance and it cannot be reversed back into the milk. So curdling of milk is an example of chemical change. In this slide, I have included the examples of physical change. Now, what are the examples which have been mentioned in the book? The glowing of the heater or a bulb. An electric heater or a bulb glows when the electric current is passed through it, but glow vanishes when the current is switched off. So this is common practice. As soon as we switch off the switch, there is no flow of electric current and we will not see the glowing bulb. Second example which is covered in the book is freezing of a liquid. On being cooled to 0 degrees Celsius, water freezes to give ice. Ice also melts back into the water on freezing. Third example, which the author is including in our book, is sublimation. So we have covered the sublimation in the class 6, but for your recall, I am writing it again here. In sublimation, some solids directly form the vapor without melting, means without undergoing into the liquid phase. So when cooled, the vapors are directly changed into the solid. So this process in which the solid directly changes into the vapor state without undergoing into the liquid phase is called sublimation. So sublimation is also the example of physical change. Now the fourth example which we have covered in the book is dissolution. Dissolution of a substance in a liquid, that is sugar, salt, glucose, etc. are some substances which can be dissolved in water. So these substances which get dissolved in the water, they are called the solute, and the liquid which makes the solute dissolve in it is called the solvent. This is the added information which I have given you. Children, we will take some more examples of physical change which are covered in our book. Such substances that dissolve are called solute, which I have already told you in the previous slide, whereas the liquid in which these substances get dissolved is called solvent. So point to be noted, when a solid dissolves in a liquid, the volume of the liquid does not change. Have you understood? Like when you are going to dissolve the sugar or the salt crystals in the water, the volume of the water will not be changed. Now, evaporation and boiling of the liquid is also the example of physical change, as it involves changing of liquid into vapors and cooling down of vapors again to liquid under condensation process. Now, other examples which the book has covered is drying of cloths. That is also an example of physical change as it involves evaporation of water. Students, now we will cover certain examples of chemical changes. First example covered in the book is burning of coal or wood. That is also an example of chemical change. Coal mainly contains carbon, which combines with oxygen to form the carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide is a gas, and that gets mixed into the air. Second example which the book is covering under the chemical changes is rusting. Rusting is also an example of chemical change as it involves the deposition of reddish brown layer over the iron objects when they are exposed to the air, that is oxygen and moisture. The process of rust formation cannot be reversed back to the iron by reversing the condition. Third example which the book covers is cooking of food and digestion. They are also the example of chemical change as new substances are formed in cooking and digestion which cannot be reversed back. This slide explains some more examples covered in the book. They are boiling of an egg, that is also an example of chemical change, as when we boil egg, the yellow yolk and the liquid get hardened, which results into hard mass. And you cannot convert the hard mass back into the yellow yolk and the liquid. So hence you can say the boiling of an egg is the chemical change. Next example is fermentation. Now what is fermentation? That is a process in which a sugar solution changes into alcohol in the presence of enzymes with production of carbon dioxide. I repeat the definition. Fermentation is a process in which a sugar solution changes into alcohol in the presence of enzymes with production of carbon dioxide. Next example, which is covered in the book, is respiration and photosynthesis. They are also the examples of chemical change, which you have already read in the previous classes. Okay, children, so I hope you all will learn all the examples. Now, children, the next topic is change of mass in a chemical change. We will learn how the mass of the matter gets changed in a chemical change. The mass of the individual substances undergoing a chemical change is altered. Okay, always remember the mass of the individual substances undergoing a chemical change is altered. Point to be noted, the total mass of the substances taking part, I repeat, the total mass of the substances taking part and formed in a chemical change remains the same. This is very important point. So I am repeating it again because this point will help you in the class 8 also. The total mass of the substances taking part and formed in a chemical change remains the same. For example, when a carbon is burnt in air, amount of carbon is reduced and finally vanishes to form the carbon dioxide. But the mass of carbon burned plus oxygen taken from the air is same as the mass of carbon dioxide is formed. So again I repeat, when the carbon is burnt in air, the amount of the carbon is reduced and finally vanishes to form the carbon dioxide, but the mass of carbon burnt plus oxygen taken from the air is same as the mass of the carbon dioxide formed. Children, now in this slide, we will make out the differences between the physical and chemical changes. So, I have given in points. A physical change is temporary while a chemical change is permanent. I repeat, a physical change is temporary while a chemical change is permanent. A physical change is reversible while a chemical change is irreversible. No new substances are formed in the physical change while in the chemical change new substances are formed. Fourth point, in a physical change the mass of the substances does not change. That means does not alter. In a chemical change, mass of the substances undergoing a chemical change is altered. I repeat, in a chemical change, the mass of the substances undergoing a chemical change is altered. Up to now, we have learned what are the physical and chemical changes. Now, the one question arises in the mind. Can the physical and chemical changes happen together in nature? Is it possible that the both changes, that is physical and chemical changes, they can take place together? The answer is yes. Yes, they can happen together. Common example is burning of candle. Following changes happen when the candle is burnt. The wax under the wick gets heated and melts. The molten wax flows down and solidifies. So when it solidifies, you can collect it and you can again reshape into the candle. Change in state from the solid to liquid and again from the liquid to the solid are physical changes. This slide is in the continuation of the previous slide. So in this slide, I have shown you the chemical change. So you can see the candle is burning. So a part of molten wax that will be vaporized and burns to form the new substances. Now what are the new substances which will be formed during the burning of the candle? They are the carbon dioxide and water vapors. So this change is irreversible. This means you cannot collect back the carbon dioxide and water vapor and again change back into the wax. So burning of the wax is chemical change. Children, now we will explore energy change during the physical and chemical changes. Okay, so how we can see the change in energy during a chemical and physical change. So physical and chemical changes, they involve the energy change. Whenever a substance changes its state, that is from the solid to liquid or liquid to solid, energy is involved. Okay, so whenever there is a substance which is showing the change in state, that is from the solid to liquid or the liquid to the solid, energy is involved. And now energy, how it will be involved during the change? Energy is either taken, that is absorbed, or given out, that is evolved, or emitted out by the substances undergoing the changes. So depending on this, we can say the changes are of two types, endothermic and exothermic. This we will cover further. Energy is either taken in, that is absorbed, or given out, that is evolved or emitted by the substances undergoing the changes. Children, in this slide, we will know the types of changes depending on energy. Physical and chemical changes involve energy changes. A change in which heat is evolved is called the exothermic change. So you can sort out the example from your surroundings, say the burning of coal. When you see the burning of coal, so much heat and the light energy is evolved in the surroundings. So you can say burning of coal is the exothermic change, a change in which heat is absorbed. That is called the endothermic change. So I repeat, a change in which heat is absorbed, that is called the endothermic change. In this slide, we will take the example of energy change in physical change. A solid has to be heated in order to melt. In other words, a solid absorbs heat in order to melt. For example, ice, sulfur, iron, etc. They used to absorb the heat. Similarly, a liquid absorbs the heat in order to change into vapors. That you have seen sometimes when you take out the ice cubes from the refrigerator and keep it outside. The ice cubes, they absorb the heat of the room, and then after some time they change into the water. Okay. So on being cooled, gases and the vapors form the liquid. Heat is given out in these processes. Children, now we will cover some examples given in the book. One activity we are going to take. Boil some water in a kettle. Place a bowl of cold water near its spout. Water vapor coming out of the spout will condense as it comes in contact with the bowl. After some time, you will find that the water in the bowl has become hot. You can do this activity under the supervision of your parent or some adult at your house. So what happened? On being cooled, water changes into the water vapor. The water vapor condenses into the drops of hot water, transferring the heat to the cold water in the bowl. So water in this bowl becomes hot. So here you have seen how the heat of the water get transferred. So this is also the example of change of state, or you can see how the energy change takes place during a physical change. In this slide, we have taken the example of energy change in chemical change. All chemical changes, they involve a change in energy. So I have taken the example of burning matchstick. So burning, that is an example of chemical change. When the coal or the wood is burned, both heat and light are emitted. So burning is the example of exothermic change. Children, now the last example which I am taking in my presentation to show the energy change during a chemical change is photosynthesis. All of you are aware of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is a process in which the green plants prepare their own food with the help of sunlight and in the presence of chlorophyll pigment and with the absorption of carbon dioxide and water. So photosynthesis in the green plant takes place only in the presence of sunlight. Chlorophyll is the required green pigment of the leaves that functions for the absorption of sunlight energy and help the plant to produce glucose and oxygen from water and carbon dioxide. Hope my presentation will be clear to you and it will clear all your doubts.